Practicing of granting fiefs has become common throughout this century, and it has become more advanced since the beginning.
It all started when the political power of the Caroline rulers had rested on the cooperation of the dominant social class, the French aristocracy. Charlemagne and his council relied on the nobles to help wage wars of expansion and suppress rebellions. The most powerful nobles were able to gain the allegiance of warriors, often symbolized an oath-swearing ceremony of homage where a warrior would swear his loyalty as a vassal to the noble who became his lord. In return for the vassal's loyalty and military assistance, the lord promised him protection and material support. This support was land the vassal controlled called a fief, which really belonged to the lord.
These fiefs contained forests, churches, and towns. Also, they went to their most powerful nobles, taking the little count. I'm here with one of these many peasants who live in a fief, Peter. Now, Peter, what do you do in a fief?
Well, us peasants produce the foods and other goods necessary to maintain the night.
Who do you think first granted fiefs?
Well, many believe that Charles Martel was the first, and then it was successor, including Charlemagne and his grandsons.
And since the Carolingians' control of their territories is weakening, will the practice of granting fiefs move over there as well?
Yes, I believe. So they probably moved to the local level with lords, bishops, and abbots, as well as kings granting fiefs.
Thank you, Peter. Well, there you have it. Peasants provided goods for the knights, and the system of granting fiefs is expanding to how territories. Back to you in the studio.
The practice of granting fiefs is becoming more and more popular throughout the land. They should really come up with a new name for it. Maybe like feudalism, but who knows what they end up naming it. That's all the news we have for now. But stay tuned, because more is just on its way. Feudalism has impacted our society strongly. This system has changed considerably in form and pattern between the 9th and 15th century.
Feudalism was the name of the system which was the practice of granting fiefs. This system was based on ties of loyalty grounded by grants of land rather than on the allegiance to a state or government system. Feudalism differed from place to place, although in some parts of Europe, warrior aristocrats or clan leaders who controlled small regions of land did not grant fiefs to secure loyalty, but relied on personal ties.
I am standing here with one of the many lords that follow in the footsteps of feudalism. Alright, now John, what does this system provide in a society that lacked government bureaucracy?
Feudalism provided some degree in bringing everyone together by providing a sophisticated method of taxation and military service so that us lords make a big profit from people.
What else do you vassal owe in this system?
They owe us administrate in military service to us lords. They also serve as advisors and judges at our courts, providing us with backup when we travel.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. Feudalism also functions as a way to organize political authority. Back to you in the studio.
Feudalism has shaped our society into what it is today. In the future, it may become even more popular, but who knows? Today, as we know, is that feudalism has impacted our society deeply.
Feudalism is now existing as two social levels. At the highest level are the lords of great feudal responsibilities, followed by their knights, and far below them, which are not really part of the feudalism system, are the peasants.
Knights held fiefs that may be larger than a small village compared to its surrounding land. In fact, some knights are landless and even live in the households of their lords. A wide, deep gap separates these levels of the lords and knights in social status and political standing. Also, the peasants, which are far below these social levels, make up the vast majority of the population in medieval Europe. I'm here with one of the people that stand in the highest level in the feudal system, Lord Robin. Lord Robin, tell us more about granting fiefs, since that is what places you in such a high level.
Well, we not only grant fiefs to knights, but also to the clergy for spiritual services or premises, right? Premises of alliance, but the church also holds pieces of land on its own and also grants fiefs just like us lords.
So, what are abbots and abbesses of monasteries, bishops and archbishops?
Well, they are either lords like me or vassals in many feudal arrangements.
And do you grant fiefs to women other than abbesses?
Women are generally not granted fiefs, but in the most parts of Europe, daughters are inherited them. Wait,
Yeah.
can inherit them if their fathers had no sons.
So, what do women do or go through then?
Well, they occasionally go through ceremonies, swearing homage and fealty and swore to send fighters when us lords demanded them, but more common to women act as substitutes when their husbands are away defending the territory from attack and carrying out administrative duties.
Feudalism is becoming more and more popular, right beneath our eyes. These two social classes of lords and then followed by knights shape the feudalism in what is today.
What is trendy right now, as we know, is manorialism. The residents of manors worked for their land in exchange for protection.
Like feudalism, manorialism involved an exchange because the economic power of the higher class and on landed estates worked by peasants, feudalism and manorialism were inseparably linked.
I am here in a village interviewing serfs about their view on manorialism. Tell me, why are peasants living in family groups or small towns made their living predominantly by raising crops and animals?
Peasants are obligated to give the lord a percentage of the annual harvest, usually in produce or sometimes cash.
How can you inherit property?
You would have to pay a fine, often the best person own.
Thank you for giving me your time. There you go, serfs are owing up their lords.
Well, there you have it. By the year 800, perhaps 60% of the population of Western Europe is completely free and has been reduced from serfdom. Breaking news: feudalism and manorialism are different but linked together. Like feudalism, manorialism involved an exchange. Feudalism was based on personal ties of loyalty cemented by grants of land rather than on alliance to a state or government system. As for manorialism, residents of manors worked for their lord in exchange for their protection.
Serfdom is a big thing that is going on right now, as we know it. Serfdom was not the same as slavery, in that lords didn't own the serf. The transition from freedom to serfdom is slow.
On a land owned by a lord, let's talk to some serfs. How is it being a serf?
Well, I would have to give a percentage of my annual crop. Crop. I can't leave my land and my child ran are stuck to the land and they are forced to work.
How is serfdom different than slavery?
Serfdom wasn't slavery. Slavery was being traded to someone new. I stay on my land and work. Most slaves should sold to Muslims.
By the year 800, 60% were free.
People are scared of the Viking attacks. Christian moralists complained about the sale of Christians to non-Christians. Serfs need protection and they lost their personal land.
Muslims finally get to the conquest of Spain. Thousands of prisoner slaves have been produced by the Muslim conquest of Spain, as did also Charlemagne's long wars and Viking raids.
The Carolinian trade in actual slaves was extensive. Many persons were captured in war and raids. Many merchants paid with slaves to suppliers for their goods, which came to Europe from the east. Many slaves were sold across the Mediterranean Sea. Most of them were sold to Muslims. For Arabs, selling slaves was a very standard procedure. Christian moralists complained about sale of Christians to non-Christian buyers, but did not object about slavery.
How do you feel being a slave?
I feel unwanted and feel like I'm an animal being forced to work day to day.
Are you a Christian?
Yes, I am.
How do you feel now that you're not being allowed to perform your religion because of your owner being non-Christian?
I feel horrible and my beliefs are all gone. I can't follow what I believe in.
There you have it. How slaves think and feel. Back to the studio.
Due to the Muslim conquest of Spain, the Charlemagne's long wars, and Viking raids, thousands of prisoner slaves have been produced. Who knows what is to become of them, but hopefully they are put to use. That's all the news for now. Thanks for watching.
Breaking news, many people turning to serfdom. Last century, many peasants were free and there were very few serfs. But since the Viking assaults, this 9th century, the amount of serfs has dramatically increased.
In a relationship with a feudal lord, free farmers lost freedom. They were forced to be serfs, serving and pleasing others. They were bound to the land and could not leave without the lord's permission. Serfs are not slaves, not being owned by someone. This was the reason serfdom was created, for 100% free, this serfs.
So Michael, I heard you just recently turned to serfdom.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I just became a serf this week.
What caused you to turn to serfdom?
The Viking attacks on Europe, of course, they made conditions very unstable, unsafe, and insecure. I need protection, and even though I lost some freedom, turning to serfdom is what best for now.
So you say you lost some freedom. Does that mean you think serfdom is like slavery?
Not exactly turning to serfdom. I did lose some personal freedom. For example, I can't leave the land without permission from my lord, but I'm not owned like a slave.
I see. So Michael, do you think many people will continue turning to serfdom despite the loss of personal freedom?
I don't think anyone will want to be a serf, and it will be very different considering that there were many free peasants in the 8th century. But because these unstoppable conditions, I believe a lot of people will turn to serfdom, even if it means giving up some personal freedom.
Well, thank you for your time, Michael. Back to the studio.
Well, there you have it. Due to Viking assaults on Europe, many once free peasants are turning to serfdom.